ahead and actually record it. All right, and we are recording. Thank you everyone for making it to this webinar. I'm super excited to talk about blogging 101. Someone was, Merelda was saying that she tends to get overwhelmed with the thought of blogging because there's just a whole lot to it. I wish I could say that I'm gonna make you feel better about that, but I'm afraid I'm not because there is a lot to blogging. So we're just gonna get right into it. I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen. There we go. Blogging 101. So this is just the basics of creating and implementing an SEO strategy. I am going to talk a little bit about SEO just because in this day and age, you cannot have blogging without SEO and you cannot have SEO without blogging. You can have blogging without SEO. It's just going to get lost in the noise because there are literally millions of blog posts being published every single day. So if you don't have a strategy in place, you are going to get lost. So that leads nicely into my very next slide. If this will work for me, there we go. Why do I need a blog? So SEO is a big one. You need to get in front of people, right? Because no one can buy your products or services if they don't know who you are. Networking, I think I met most, if not all of you at some networking event or three, right? But networking only gets you so far. I just got a new client from someone out in Geneva that I've never met before, but he found my website because I've got a blog and I've got an SEO strategy. So that's how he found me. So I am able to expand my reach, especially in this digital age. There is no limit to the people that you can reach. So that's one reason to have a blog. And even when I do meet people in person, like we'll meet at the meeting and then we'll set up a one-on-one. And then between the meeting and the one-on-one, they'll check out my blog. They want to make sure that I really know what I'm talking about. They want to see what I'm all about. I think most of them want to make sure that I'm actually practicing what I preach. So I cannot tell you how many times I've had a one-on-one with someone and they're like, oh yeah, I was reading your blog and I saw you do such and such and you were giving this advice and this and that. So it positions you as a thought leader, right? So now we have that meeting, and even before we sit down, they already know that I'm an expert. They already know that I know what I'm talking about because they read my blog. So there are a lot of benefits to blogging. I would say SEO and positioning you as a thought leader are two of the biggest reasons that you need a blog. So who am I? Again, I think I know most of you. I think I've met most of you. Some of you I've even met in person. Others others are a little farther away. So we've met on Zoom, but I've had a one-on-one with most of you. So for those of you who don't know or don't remember how I got started blogging, I've always been a writer, always loved the written word. Writing not only comes very easily to me, but it is something I am very passionate about. Wanted to be a professional novelist when I was growing up, and my parents wanted me to choose something more practical. They said writers don't make money. So I thought, well, maybe if I can't make a living writing books, I can make a living making books. So I majored in English and psychology. Thought that turned out to be the perfect degree for content marketing. I had no idea what content marketing was. Like I said, I thought I was going to work in publishing. Graduated in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So there were no jobs to be had in publishing or really anywhere else. So I was a receptionist. I was in customer service. I did this and that. They were jobs, they were not careers. Found myself between jobs at one point, and my roommate at the time, her dad, who was an attorney, was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And he knew I had strong writing skills. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. So he offered me the gig and I was more than happy to get paid to write. So I jumped at that chance, took over writing 2 to 4 blog posts per month for him. And after 6 months, he told me I had brought in $75,000 worth of business to his law firm, because again, one of the reasons you need to be blogging is to establish yourself as an expert, especially if you're in a B2B industry or a professional services industry, such as law or financial planning, right? People are not going to hand over the big bucks to people, to just anyone, to handle their legal problems. So that was obviously proved really beneficial. And that was when I was like, oh, I could actually like really make a living at this. So did that for a while for him, actually continued writing for him up until he retired. And yeah, the rest is history. I've been doing this ever since and getting more and more into the SEO side. So moving right along. So I want to talk about how to optimize your blog, because again, as I mentioned, there are literally millions of blog posts being published every single day. That is a lot of noise that you need to try to cut through. And the best way to cut through that noise is to target a specific audience. Don't try to target everyone. Don't try to get your blog post in front of everyone, because that's not going to happen. Try to get it in front of your target audience, which I also have a whole other webinar on how to find out your target audience. But some of the quick basics, just get down to the pain point that you solve. Who has that pain point and who's willing to pay for the solution that you're providing? Who are your favorite clients? I think that's one that I go back to again and again. When people ask me who I need to meet, I'm like, well, that person over there has been awesome for me and referring me to all their friends. So if I could find another person like them, send them my way. So know who your favorite clients are and what makes them your favorite clients. Is it a certain income level? Is it a certain gender? I have found that I do like working with women more than men. I do work with men too, but women are just easier. So who are your favorite clients? What are they? What traits do they have in common to, again, figure out who your target audience is, and then use social media to your advantage. Who's following your competition on social media? Who's following you on social media? And then what else are they following? What other accounts are they following? What other interests do they have? There is a wealth of information to be found on social media, as far as figuring out, helping you come up with the information you need to fill out a marketing persona. Optimize your blog for search engines. This is where the SEO comes in. Again, SEO is a whole big thing, but just to get down to the basics, you're going to want to do your keyword research. Make sure that people are actually looking for the content that you're covering and that it has not been covered to death by your competition, right? So when you use a keyword tool, and again, I covered this more in another webinar, but if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. But when you do a keyword research, the tool is always going to give you a search volume, which is the average number of searches per month that keyword gets. And then it's going to give you a competition score, which is a score from 1 to 100. That tells you how much competition there is out there. So if it's 1, there's no competition out there, you are free to rank for that keyword. If the score is 100, there's tons of competition out there. You have no chance of ranking on the first page of Google for that particular keyword. So it's all about finding that sweet spot between a decent search volume without too high of a competition score. Length, people never like to hear this, but blog posts that rank on the first page of Google have an average length of about 1,700 words. Excuse me. People sometimes ask me if that differs by topic or industry, if there are some industries that people just want to get in and get some quick tips and get out. I have not found that it varies by industry. I have found that it varies by keyword. So when you're figuring out a topic to write about and you're doing your keyword research, if you want to go ahead and do a quick Google search of that keyword before you start writing anything, go ahead and see how much content, how long the blog posts are that are ranking for that keyword. Are they around 500 words? Are they 2,000 words? Are they somewhere in the middle? That will give you an indication of how long your blog post should be. So again, a lot of people get stuck on that 1,700 word, that number. But again, that's the average length. So some blog posts that rank on the first page are longer, some are even shorter. Again, it depends on your keyword. Publish consistently. This is one where I see a lot of solopreneurs failing, and I get it. I know we all get busy, and blogging is often the last thing on our to-do list. It gets pushed to the end. You need to have a consistent schedule. People need to know when you're going to be publishing. Google needs to know when you're going to be publishing, because if you have a sporadic publishing schedule, Google doesn't really trust you. If you publish new content that's relevant, that's high quality on a consistent basis, that's going to help you earn Google's trust, and then Google can rank your content for you. but it's got to be on a consistent basis. Next up, publish as often as you can, at least once a week. The blog posts, on average, the people who really get results from their blog posts publish again at least once a week. The people who publish 2 to 3 times a week or even daily are the ones who are really seeing the best results from their blog. I don't expect you to blog every single day, especially if you're a solopreneur. I don't blog every single day. I blog once a week. I make it a really long, in-depth blog post. It goes up once. And yes, sometimes I get busy and I recycle content, and I make sure that there's always something getting published, even if it's getting republished on my blog every single week, which gets me back to publish consistently. And yes, I know I put that already, but there's a reason I put it twice. And it's because it is so important. And it is something that so few people do. And I just really want to drive home how important it is to publish on a consistent basis. Optimize your headline. So if you get on the first page of Google and people see your headline and it doesn't make them want to click through, then you're not going to get any clicks, and you probably will actually lose that ranking because Google will see that no one is clicking through. So your headline has to be as good as it possibly can be in order to get people to click through. So first tip for optimizing your headline is go back to your keyword research, use those relevant keywords, preferably at the front of your headline. If you use it earlier on and people see that, that's going to grab their attention, and it's going to be a cue to them that the content is relevant. Next, target emotions. Remember that people buy on emotions, and they certainly click based on emotions. So you have to, again, remember that pain point that you're solving for them, and talk about that pain point and tell them how you can help solve that problem for them. Put that in your headline, right? Obviously, it's not going to be a huge long headline because then it's going to run off the screen and they're not going to see it. But what are those key words that they are looking for? Not the keywords that they're searching, but like those really important emotional keywords that really pack an emotional punch that you can include in your headline. I use CoSchedule's Headline Analyzer. There are a bunch of headline analyzing tools out there. You can do your research, but I will say that my personal favorite is CoSchedule's. That's the one that I use all the time. Every time I write a blog post, I run my headline through there. How to people, that's a huge keyword, is how to do XYZ, how to do such and such, how do I solve this problem, right? So starting your headline with how to is a great way to optimize that headline, because that's telling people what they can expect. Another one is numbers. Numbers tend to do really well, especially if you have a list. If your blog post is in list form, that makes it really easy for Google to index and categorize that content, which gives you a better chance of ranking for that keyword. And again, people love lists. If they see, that they've got 3 ways to do XYZ or 5 reasons they should do such and such, they're going to be much more likely to click through. So those are, again, just some quick tips on how to optimize your headline. And next, research your topic. So first of all, make sure you haven't already covered the topic. I've only had my blog for probably coming on 3 years now. I think in a couple months it will have been 3 years. So I have this blog post, these blogs, and I still, like, even though it's only been 3 years, I still find myself going, oh, I should cover that. And then I'll look at my blog and go, oh, I already covered that. I should not do that again, because then I'm fighting myself for that keyword. So make sure you haven't already covered the topic. For my clients where I don't have access to their website, if I just write it up in a Word document and send it to them, I keep a spreadsheet where I list all of the blog post topics that I have written for them. So I can go through that spreadsheet if I have an idea and I think, well, maybe I've already covered it for them. That's a way that I make sure that I'm not doing the work twice, first of all, because no one likes that. But it's also a way of making sure that my content is more unique and that I'm not accidentally fighting myself for the same keywords. Researching your topic is also a great way to see what other people have said about that particular topic. You want to, again, getting back to those really long, in-depth blog posts, if you want it to be 1,700, 2,000 words long, it has to cover everything there is to cover on that given topic. And the way to do that is to make sure that you have everything there is to say about that topic in your blog post. So researching the topic and seeing what other people have said about it is a great way to make sure that you're not forgetting anything. Right? I know that you are an expert in what you do. You know all of the things about your topic, but it's always a good idea to check and see what other people are saying. And sometimes that can give you a clue as to the position you should take or the angle you should take with that given topic. If someone posited something, in your industry and you completely disagree with them, you can write your own blog post that says, they said this, but I think they're wrong and here's why. Don't be mean about it. Don't call them names or anything. Be respectful, but have a reason as to why you disagree with them. If you can back it up with logic and data and information, that's a great way to position yourself as an expert. Tell a story. People love stories, and you want to make sure that your prospect is the main character, right? So you can have all the facts and all the statistics. I know lots of facts and statistics and numbers about blogging and SEO, and no one cares. They care about getting high quality leads to their website and calling them out of the blue so that all they have to do is have one conversation with them and they get a new client, right? Who does not love that story? So if every blog post, every piece of content really should start with the story that, again, puts that pain point front and center. So that, again, that's going to engage your reader. That's going to get them paying attention, sitting up and paying attention to what you have to say, and they're going to be more likely to keep reading. Then you can get into your 3 tips on doing such and such, or 5 ways to do X, Y, Z, right? And then at the end, bring it back to that pain point and remind them that they're not going to get out of that pain point until they either take the steps that you laid out earlier in the blog post, or they reach out to you to hire you. So putting all of that into a story is a great way to help people remember you. We don't remember numbers. We don't remember facts and statistics. We remember stories. And again, people buy based on emotion, and stories, if you can target that emotion in a story, that's going to be a great way to get people's attention and to keep their attention. Finally, you're going to want to edit your content before publishing. Ideally, you should really hire a professional. If you don't have the money for a professional, get someone else to look at your content. It could be a spouse, it could be a partner. If you have a child who's really acing their English exams, then maybe, hand it off to your kid to read the content. If you are in a B2B industry, I would say it's okay to have someone else in your industry look it over. If you are in a B2C industry, the lawyers I work with run into this a lot, right? They use all that lawyery jargon. I run into it sometimes where I use acronyms that I forget that not everyone knows what those acronyms mean, right? So having someone else who might be in the position of your consumer read your content for you, make sure it's not too jargony, make sure it's readable and that people will want to read it and they'll actually get all the way through to the end. That is a great way to go. Option C is if you absolutely have to edit it yourself, you can't find anyone else to do it for you. My tips for doing that are, number 1, leave it alone for at least 24 hours, preferably longer. I like to leave mine alone for 5 to 7 days if I can, before I'll edit it and turn it in, just because that way it's really fresh when I look at it and I'm not busy thinking about what I just wrote yesterday or an hour ago. Read it out loud. This forces you to slow down. When we are reading, especially when we're reading something that we wrote, we know what we meant to say. So we, instead of really reading what's there, we tend to skim over it and think that we wrote what we meant to write instead of what's actually there. So by reading it out loud, it forces you to slow down and really look at what's there. I have caught a number of mistakes in my own content by reading it through once silently. And then when I read it out loud, I annoy my dog, who is now wondering why I'm talking to the screen. But it catches those little errors, especially the typos and grammatical errors that, spell check won't catch because they are words, they're just in the wrong context. Next up is use a different font. I do this, again, WordPress lets you do a preview publish option, so you can look at how it's going to look when it's published before you actually publish it, and that makes it look completely different. So I use that as a way to, it kind of wakes up your brain and fools your brain into thinking that you are looking at new content instead of looking at again, the same content you just wrote. If you're doing this in Word, if you're doing it in like a Word document or a Google Doc, you can just change the font and it will achieve that same effect. So that, again, it's a great way to fool your brain into thinking that you're looking at different content, even though it's the same thing. And that can help you catch those errors that you were just skimming over before. So that is all that I have about blogging 101. If you want to learn more, I do want to alert you to my blogging group coaching program. I go live every week to provide blogging tips and tricks and SEO tips and tricks. We have a weekly power hour where we work on your goals for the week, and then you get exclusive access to me and my expertise. You get to ask me questions pretty much whenever. There is a dedicated day for asking me questions, but I'll answer questions whenever in that group. So if you liked what you saw here and you want to dive deeper into learning more about doing your own blogging and SEO, highly recommend that program, and you can reach out to me to learn more about that. And that is it. So if anyone has any questions, I will open up the floor to questions now.
I do have a couple questions.
Go for it.
When you said publish as often as you can, and some people publish daily, my question is, does the blogging, I guess, mechanism allow you to write posts and schedule them in advance?
Oh, yes.
Or do you have to use a scheduler? Like for my Facebook content and stuff, or can I use WordPress to just schedule those?
WordPress allows you to schedule a blog post ahead of time to go out at any time. It does get a little wonky. I use a plugin and I can't remember what it's called because for a while I was scheduling stuff and it wasn't actually getting published when I scheduled it to publish. So there's a plugin that can help you work around that. Or you can play around with the best time to publish to work around that in a different way. But yes, I do publish my stuff ahead of time, or I write it and schedule it to be published so that I don't have to be there, pushing the button at that time.
And then my second question is in the part where you said 3 ways to or reasons to, like that format, is there a number that you tend to, is there a sweet spot on number of tips? Like, is it 3, is it 5, 10? Not
really. I think because I do tend to write the longer blog posts. So I've probably written 10. I was going to say, I don't think I've gone longer than 10 just because I feel like that can be overwhelming to some people. But I know I've seen other blog posts that are like 27 of the best XYZ, or I think I've even seen like 45 of the best, such and such. Okay. So no, I don't think there is a limit. I think it goes back to how long do you want it to be? I focus on 3 just because 3 is easy and it is quick and people know that they're going to get in and they're going to get 3 quick tips and they can get out. So I tend to do that for my clients. For when I write the 500 word blog post. I don't think I mentioned this when it comes to length, but I should point out that 500 words is the minimum. There really is no maximum. There is no 1 word count for everyone. But at minimum, it should be 500 words just because Google likes that number. Again, as a minimum, it perceives that as being kind of the threshold to high quality content. So yeah, 500 words at least for all your blog posts.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Allison, I had a couple of questions too. I'm aware that my population is not necessarily big on social media, but the blogging would be a different kind of contact with them, right? So it would be posted obviously to my website. And then would my list be getting notified when there's a new blog, or how does
Only,
that?
only if you set up an RSS feed so that they can subscribe to get those notifications. What I do is I do use social media, and I do have an email list. So every week I send out a newsletter, and it has a link to my new blog post in addition to whatever else I have going on. So that's how I manually alert my audience. I don't have anything set up so that they automatically get updates.
Okay, and I'm aware that at least with Gmail, which is my email, that I tend to my Gmail tends to, you know, kind of shuffle things around for me. At least that's my settings, and I kind of like that. So I don't often see some of those things that I'm subscribed to until, you know, sometime later.
Mhm.
And I'm also aware that I had one experience of sending out a newsletter, and I was surprised at the low open rate
Mhm.
when I did the analytics. So is that because you send things blind copy? Is that when it
When
gets,
you say you had a low open rate, what was the open rate? Do you
it was
remember?
like, yeah, it was like 17%.
Okay, yeah. So there are a lot of reasons. First of all, and it depends on your industry, but the average open rate is, I want to say, around 30 or 40%, because
Okay.
most people do subscribe and they don't open newsletters for a variety of reasons. So if you're not getting a high open rate, I would say one, play around with your headline and see if that makes a difference. And two, because you said you looked at the analytics, so look at when people are opening your newsletter. Because I had that where I was told that like Tuesdays and Thursdays are the best day to send newsletters, and I was like, okay, I'll send it Tuesday. And I had a terrible open rate, and I noticed that most people were opening it on Wednesday. So I changed my day to Wednesday, and my open rate improved. So those are the two things that I would recommend, is the tweak your headline and play around with when you're sending it. Also have a follow-up message that goes out to them that says, hey, make sure that you add me to your contact list so that my stuff does not go into spam, because a lot of newsletters do go straight to spam, even if it's not spam. So, you know, even if they did subscribe to it, I think I've had that where I subscribe to a newsletter and I'm like, where'd it go? And I find it in my spam folder. So try and alert them, your subscribers, to the fact that it might go to spam, and try to tell them, you know, please make sure you check your spam folder and add me to your contacts list so that this doesn't happen again.
And it does sending things, just emails in general, as a blind copy, does that tend to segregate things out differently in some emails?
Yeah, Gmail tends to send a lot of those to the promotions tab. And yeah, a lot of people like you don't always check the promotions tab, or they check them once a day or once a week or whatever.
And do the other email providers send them to spam sometimes?
Yeah, and Google might send them to spam sometimes, especially if you have certain, you know, words or phrases in there, like, you know, free or money or the $sign, like all those things tend to get sent straight to spam because those are big red flags.
Yeah, yeah. And my last question is just if you could tell us a little bit more about the group.
Oh yeah, my blogging group.
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
So if I remember, I did a little bit of research yesterday afternoon and on your site, and I thought I remembered that this is through Facebook. Is that right?
It is. Yeah,
Okay.
It's a Facebook group. So yeah, it's hosted on Facebook, but it is a private Facebook group. So you do have to sign up and pay for the group coaching program in order to get access to the Facebook group.
Okay. And what is the price?
$97 a month.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Rebecca, you had a question?
I was just going to say, not a question, but a comment, that when I send out a newsletter to my customers, because I really don't do blogging because of restrictions I have with Melaleuca and social media and just with trying promoting. But I use MailChimp, and I'm not the techno wizard, but MailChimp has been something that's really helped me. And I don't think my emails go to people's spam folders. I think they go directly to the folders, so.
Yeah, that's one of the
That's where
benefits of
usually-
using something like MailChimp or Constant Contact is that
Right.
they are less likely to go into spam. If you are sending it directly from your email and they see that you're, a bunch of emails, I think it's more than like 50 emails going out a day from, or, within a specified time going out from one email address, that tends to flag the spam
Flag.
folders as well. So
Right.
yeah, Lori, I don't know if you're just sending it from your Gmail account, that could be the problem you're running into.
Thank you. I need to send out an important announcement to folks, and I know that they're going to want to see it, at least
Mhm.
most of them. And so
Mhm.
I'm just trying to troubleshoot how to make sure that it doesn't get, sent off somewhere else.
Okay.
Short of actually sending an individual email to every single person,
Right.
Mhm.
One of the things that I have found just in trying to clean up my own personal emails is if I scan it and trash it, and I do that consistently with certain ones, all of a sudden it starts ending up in my spam folder consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
track your behavior and adjust accordingly, because I have
Yeah.
stuff that I put out that initially goes to my promotions tab, but because I open it a lot, it ends up after a while, it'll end up in my primary folder, because Google goes, oh, you really do want this content. Okay.
Or if you haven't read one for a while, all of a sudden I'll get a notice that says, you haven't opened this. Do you want us to unsubscribe you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm one of those where stuff sits in my email box. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I know my dad always complains about not knowing what's going on. And I'm like, why don't you subscribe to their newsletters? Like, I never read newsletters. I'm like, well, then you can't complain about being left in the dark if you're not asking for the information. All right, any other questions? We ready to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Great information. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. This was
Great.
Lots of
great.
notes. Thank you.
Really helpful.
You are very welcome. And